poisoning her mind with fear. That rot covers him now. Covers him.
Do you see it, Senua?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is my first impressions and my review of Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. We were given the great opportunity from our friends over at Xbox and Ninja Theory to review the game, so this is my little gift from Xbox and my gift to you to show you what this game is about and where we are compared to the first Hellblade game. The first Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, was probably one of the most unique single-player experiences I have played, and Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga definitely continues that trend. The first Hellblade was known for its unique puzzles, its world building, and the lore surrounding Senua and the quest that she is on. Hellblade 2 ups the ante in some areas, such as how visually stunning the game is. This was probably one of the first things I noticed jumping into Hellblade 2 with how cinematic the game looks and feels. Now, there's not going to be any spoilers in this review. Most of the gameplay you are seeing is within the early stages of the story. Minor spoilers from the first Hellblade game, as the game starts you off with a quick recap of what happened during Senua's Sacrifice. It talks a little bit about Senua's quest to hell in order to save the soul of a loved one, whose head she carries on the back of her belt. If you've played through the first Hellblade game, then you know that it does not hold your hand, nor is there any tutorial. The main character Senua deals with psychosis, and the whispers that she hears in her ears are the only helpful tips you will ever have during this game.
In the dark. You have to help him, Senua.
The same thing continues with Hellblade 2, although I personally feel like the difficulty was dumbed down a bit for this game. While playing through this game, I found that the puzzles and the combat were actually a little easier than you would have found during the first Hellblade game. Maybe there was some community feedback about the first Hellblade game being a little too hard, which I can kind of see in some aspects because it did take me a little more brain power to complete some puzzles on that game. But I think where Hellblade's puzzle difficulty may have been at level 10, this game kind of brought it down to like a 6 or a 5, as it only took me a few minutes to complete most of the puzzles in this game. But that doesn't mean that the puzzles weren't unique and engaging. I did have a lot of fun with them, and visually they always look stunning. Which brings me to the biggest green flag about this game, the visuals. Hellblade 2 shines when it comes to graphics, quite literally, as you can tell that Ninja Theory put a lot of work into making this game very stunning. When it comes to the realistic lighting effects or the scenery, reflections, or how water behaves, this game is probably one of the best that I've seen. The character models as well have a very nice sense of realism, although there was a few hiccups I found when it came to characters' faces. I did come across a few rendering issues when it came to Senua's face and other characters' faces in the game. Playing around with my graphic settings weren't a quick fix for this issue, but eventually it did go away after I restarted the game. The feel of Hellblade 2 is more rich and vibrant, and it feels like a more lived-in world compared to the first game, especially because in this game you actually get to interact with other characters that add to the story. Now, there is one aspect of this game where I felt like the cinematic feel was actually a little bit of a downside, and that's with the combat. Now, the combat in the first Hellblade game was fairly simple, but also unique. It gave you a light attack, a heavy attack, evades, blocks, and even though it doesn't tell you this, yes, if you block at the right time, you could even parry. See, I didn't know if you could, given that this game doesn't tell you but I had a guess there might have been a parry. Hellblade 2 doesn't innovate on the combat that much, as you're given the same tools that you were in the first game. But I do have to say that I kind of preferred the grounded feel of the combat in the first Hellblade game compared to the second. Combat in Hellblade 2 feels a lot more cinematic, so visually it looks nice, but I do feel as though the combat in Hellblade 2 is a little easier and it feels more like watching a cinematic than actually playing through a combat session. In the first Hellblade game, you could be surrounded by enemies and you could actually have enemies try to attack you at once. You were given a camera mechanic in the first Hellblade game where you could target separate enemies, and because of the fact that you could be surrounded, you actually had to plan out how you fight them. You don't really get much of that in Hellblade 2, as you fight one enemy at a time, so it doesn't feel as challenging. And because the combat's more cinematic, I didn't really get that feel of like being a badass taking on multiple enemies at once like you would in like Devil May Cry, for example. I will say that hitting a perfectly timed parry is very satisfying, but I do wish that the combat was a little more similar to the first game. Hellblade is really good for creating an immersive story using its visuals and also audio. I would say the audio in this game, even the first game, was something that's very unique that you don't get in many other games. This game is definitely best played using headphones, and it will recommend that when you start the game. When you play this game, you truly feel like you are in the world and that you are actually walking in Senua's footsteps. It's pretty unique because there's even times where the whispers that you hear actually like trip you out. Like for me, there was a lot of occasions where I felt like I was going a little crazy and getting like panicked the same way Senua would, but it definitely adds on to the experience, and the entire thing together creates for a very compelling story. Ninja Theory's use of Norse mythology in this game, even the first game, is fantastic. While playing through this game, I always wondered where the next task was going to bring me because every single level builds upon the last. The situations you end up in always add on to the experience and kept me wanting more. Overall, Hellblade 2 Senua Saga is a great game and definitely worth trying. If you're the kind of person that likes those single-player linear stories with grand visual spectacles with some horror elements, then this is definitely the game for you. Senua is a very unique protagonist who always kept me engaged, and it was very fun to walk with her through her story. It continues a lot of things that made the first game really great and then gives you a little more spice to keep things interesting. Hellblade 2 is absolutely beautiful, scary at times, and gives you some nice thought-provoking puzzles. My only gripes about the game were some of the graphical hiccups that I encountered, and although it was more visually stunning and added some cool effects, the combat didn't feel as interesting as the first game, where I was this cool warrior that was cutting down demons. But those are my thoughts on Hellblade 2, one of the most unique and beautiful games you'll play in 2024. An engaging story, fun combat, fun puzzles, that comes with a lot of unique twists and is very intense and suspenseful at times. But give it a try for yourself. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Hellblade 2 Senua Saga. I had a great time with the game. Tell me what some of your favorite parts of Hellblade is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys on the next one.
Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out of it!